Captain Elias Rourke stepped off the sleek shuttle onto the landing platform of Lyrathia, the newest human colony negotiation site. The planet stretched out in front of him like a living jewel. Emerald green forests shimmered under a pale blue sky, and rivers curved across the land like threads of silver. The air was breathable, though tinged with an unfamiliar sweetness. It was quiet, almost unnaturally so, for a planet supposedly teeming with intelligent life. Elias adjusted the strap of his utility pack and glanced at the towering palace ahead. The architecture was unlike anything he had seen before. The building appeared to grow out of the mountain itself, with translucent walls that reflected sunlight in dancing patterns. Rumors, said the Orinians, the planet's inhabitants, were brilliant and strange. Each citizen was a strategist, a thinker, and fiercely independent. Elias smiled to himself. He loved a challenge. Humanity thrived on challenges. A small group of Orinians, tall and graceful, greeted him. Their skin shimmered faintly, like polished metal under sunlight. Their eyes were deep, intelligent, and unreadable. One of them, a tall figure with silver hair that floated slightly as if weightless, stepped forward. "You must be Captain Rourke," she said, her voice calm but firm. "That's me," Elias replied, offering a hand. "And you are?" "I am Lyra," she said, her gaze sharp. "I will be your guide while you are here." "We thing. I will be your guide." "We thing you will be your guide." Elias noted the subtle curve of her smile. She was not the type to be impressed by greetings or handshakes. That made her more interesting. Humans often underestimated aliens, but he had learned that sometimes the ones who seemed untouchable were the most fascinating. Lyra led Elias through a series of wide corridors. The walls glimmered like polished stone, yet they pulsed faintly, as if alive. Lights floated in midair, casting soft glows on the floor. Elias could not help but marvel. Humans had built beautiful things, but this was something else entirely. Finally, they reached a smaller set of corridors. Lyra paused in front of a door. "This is your room," she said. Her voice clipped but polite. Elias raised an eyebrow. "My room? Already? You don't waste time, I see." Lyra ignored the comment. She pushed open the door, revealing a room that was surprisingly modest. A single bed rested against one wall, a desk by the window, and a small cabinet in the corner. A soft carpet covered the floor, and the entire space was bathed in the soft, natural glow from a window overlooking the valley below. "This is cozy," Elias said, stepping inside. He looked around, and then froze. The single bed was small, meant for one. His eyes met Lyra's. She crossed her arms. "This is my room," she said. "And there's just one bed." She relayed there. "Mine is Narm." Elias chuckled. "Perhaps there's space for the two of us," he said, his tone teasing but respectful. Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly, though the hint of a smile tugged at her lips. "Captain Rourke. Humor will not change Orinian rules." "I understand," Elias said, raising his hands. "But humans are known for thinking outside the rules." Lyra shook her head, amused despite herself. "We shall see if your thinking is useful." Elias took a moment to study the room, taking in its simplicity. There were no decorations, no clutter, everything had a purpose. Lyra herself was the same. He thought, humans often thrived in chaos, but the Orinians thrived in control. It would be a fascinating contrast. "I'll unpack," Elias said finally, deciding not to press the bed issue. "But first, tell me about the planet. I assume there are no dangerous predators, right?" Lyra's expression became serious. "Lyrathia is safe for those who follow the rules, but the planet itself, the weather and terrain are challenges. We have storms that can shred metal, and winds that can tear flesh. That is why your fleet was screened before landing. Only the capable are allowed." Elias grinned. "I like a challenge." Lyra's lips twitched in a faint smile. "We shall see." As Elias unpacked his essentials, he noticed subtle differences in the room. The walls seemed to hum faintly when he touched them, as if alive, The air shifted with his movements. He made a mental note to learn more about the Iranians' technology. It was unlike anything humans had encountered. By evening, Elias and Lyra were seated in the small dining area connected to the room. Lyra had prepared a meal of fresh fruits, sliced and arranged in patterns that looked almost like art. Elias could not help but admire the precision. "You eat in moderation," he said. "Humans tend to overdo things." Lyra's eyes sparkled. "And yet, humans survive. Perhaps moderation is not always necessary." Elias laughed. "Exactly. Sometimes taking a risk is the best way to survive. That is why I am here." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "I am here to negotiate." "Yes," Elias said. "But humans are persuasive. We see opportunities others miss. And we take risks. That is what makes us valuable. Not just to our own species, but to any who dare to work with us." Lyra studied him, her expression unreadable. "Confidence is rare, Captain. Perhaps it is also reckless." Elias shrugged. "Perhaps. But humans have a saying, 'Fortune favors the bold.' I think it applies across the galaxy." For a moment, the only sound was the soft hum of the walls. Then Lyra smiled, small, almost imperceptible, but genuine. "You may stay here," she said. "But know this. Rules exist for a reason, and breaking them is not always rewarded." Elias raised his cup in a mock salute. "Understood. I will tread carefully. For now." Later, as he lay on the single bed, Elias could not stop thinking about the day. The Iranians were disciplined, precise, and brilliant. But humans had creativity, audacity, and charm. He felt a spark of excitement. If he played his cards right, he could gain not just an ally, but a friend, and perhaps teach the Iranians something new about human ingenuity along the way. Outside, the valley was bathed in moonlight, the rivers glinting like silver threads. Elias felt the thrill of being a pioneer once again. The stars above promised adventure, and the mysterious Lyra promised challenge. Humanity had arrived on Lyrathia, and he had no intention of playing small. He closed his eyes, a small smile on his face. Tomorrow would bring tests, storms, and negotiations. But tonight, he allowed himself a little audacity. Perhaps there was indeed space for more than one approach. Maybe even for two species to share the same ambitions, and maybe, just maybe, for two individuals to find understanding across worlds. The morning sun bathed Lyrathia's valley in golden light. Captain Elias Rourke woke to the hum of the palace walls, a subtle vibration that seemed almost alive. He stretched, feeling the unfamiliar softness of the single bed, and wondered if Lyra had designed it that way to keep humans from getting too comfortable. He grinned at the thought. Humans were adaptable, they could survive almost anything. Breakfast was served in the same small dining room. Lyra had prepared a simple yet elegant meal. Bright, tangy fruits, crisp vegetables, and a soft bread made from local grains. Elias ate quickly, his eyes scanning the valley below. "You seem eager," Lyra said, her voice calm but curious. "Curiosity is human nature," Elias replied. "And so is action. Waiting around is not something we do well." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "Action, yes, but thoughtless action can lead to failure." "I promise to be both thoughtful and daring," Elias said, with a wink. Lyra studied him for a moment, then finally nodded. "Very well. Today, you will see what Lyrathia truly demands of those who wish to live here." Elias followed her to a hangar where a small fleet of sleek, aerodynamic craft waited. The vehicles shimmered in the sunlight, their surfaces almost liquid, reflecting the sky above. They were designed for speed and precision, perfect for navigating the asteroid fields that circled the planet, a natural defense system that few species could survive. "This is the challenge," Lyra said, pointing to the swirling asteroid belt visible beyond the planet's atmosphere. "Human ships are small, fast, but fragile. The storms here can tear through metal like paper. Many pilots have tried, and many have failed. You will fly through the field and retrieve a beacon placed in its center. It is a test of skill, judgment, and courage. Elias felt a thrill run through him. This was exactly the kind of challenge humans excelled at: dangerous, complex, and requiring creativity. Do humans always volunteer for impossible missions? Lyra asked, an amused edge in her voice. Only the ones who survive to tell the story, Elias replied. The Urinians suited him up. The suit was light, flexible, and fitted with sensors to monitor his vitals and movements. Elias felt strangely comfortable inside it. Humans had always been resilient, able to adapt to extreme conditions. He liked the feeling of being tested. Lyra watched from the observation deck as Elias climbed into the cockpit. She had seen many pilots attempt the challenge, but something about him made her pause. Humans were bold. Yes. But reckless? Perhaps. But this human, there was something else. Something different. Elias initiated the launch sequence. The craft lifted gracefully, gliding through the open hangar and into the atmosphere. The wind buffeted the ship as he ascended, and the asteroid field came into view. It was terrifying. Rocks the size of houses floated in chaotic patterns, spinning unpredictably. Some glowed faintly with energy from the planet's storms, while others seemed almost invisible against the bright sky. The field was alive with danger. Elias took a deep breath. Time to show what humans can do, he muttered to himself. He adjusted the ship's controls, weaving carefully through the first cluster of asteroids. His reflexes were sharp, his instincts precise. Humans were capable of improvisation that even the most disciplined aliens struggled with, and he used it to navigate spaces where logic alone could fail. A massive asteroid spun toward him, faster than the others. Elias tilted the ship at just the right angle, letting the momentum carry him around it in a wide arc. The thrill of near collision made his heart pound, but he smiled. Humans thrived on moments like this. Fear sharpened focus, and creativity saved lives. Halfway through the field, a violent storm hit. Lightning-like energy arced between the rocks, illuminating the spinning debris. Elias's ship shuddered, alarms blaring. Sensors indicated energy spikes capable of burning through the hull. Not good, he muttered, scanning for a path. He remembered an old human tactic: look where others won't, think where others can't. Using the reflections from the storm, he traced the safest route between two massive asteroids. Weaving in ways no calculated map could predict, Lyra watched from above, her expression unreadable. The other Irinians would have been cautious, calculated, following predictable paths. But the human, he was improvising, turning chaos into opportunity. Finally, he reached the center of the storm, where the beacon floated suspended in energy. With a careful maneuver, he latched onto it, activating its retrieval system. The beacon blinked a soft green, signaling success. Impressive, Lyra said, her voice carrying a note of genuine admiration. Humans have a way of turning danger into advantage. Elias guided the craft back, dodging smaller asteroids as the storm began to dissipate. Every movement required split-second decisions, and every choice counted. By the time he landed, sweat dampened his brow, but his grin was wide. You survived, Lyra said, stepping forward. And you retrieved the beacon. Few can do that, Elias laughed, stepping out of the craft. Few are humans. Lyra shook her head, smiling faintly. Your species is audacious, sometimes foolish, but also extraordinary. They walked back toward the palace, the hum of the landing platform beneath their feet. Elias felt a growing respect for the Urinians, and he sensed that they were beginning to respect him in return. Humanity had arrived on Lyrathea not just as diplomats, but as a species capable of daring feats that others could not imagine. That evening, Elias and Lyra stood on a balcony overlooking the valley. The sun dipped behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the rivers. Elias could see the beauty and danger of the planet in the same frame. Lyrathea was alive, challenging, and unpredictable, much like the humans themselves. You took risks today, Lyra said quietly. Risks that could have cost you everything. Why do humans act this way? Because we must, Elias replied. Challenges define us. They show us what we are capable of. And sometimes, taking a risk is the only way to succeed. Lyra regarded him for a long moment. Perhaps that is a lesson your people can teach even the most advanced civilizations. Elias smiled. Maybe. But it's also a lesson for those who dare to face us. They stood in silence, watching the stars emerge over the valley. The first test had been passed, but Elias knew it was only the beginning. Lyrathia held secrets, dangers, and challenges that would test every skill he had. Yet for the first time, he felt a true connection with the planet and its people. A connection forged not through diplomacy alone, but through courage, ingenuity, and shared experience. Later, as Elias prepared for bed, he thought about Lyra's words. Humans were audacious, perhaps reckless, but also adaptable, resourceful, and brave. That combination, he realized, was often underestimated by other species. It gave humans a spark that no logic or discipline alone could match. And tomorrow, he thought with a grin, would bring new challenges. Perhaps negotiation, perhaps danger, perhaps both. But one thing was certain: he and the humans he represented would meet it with creativity, courage, and a boldness that Lyrathia had never seen before. As he lay down, Elias felt a sense of anticipation. The planet was alive, the Orinians brilliant, and the future uncertain. Yet in uncertainty lay opportunity. Humanity had survived countless trials in the past, and here, on this distant world, it would rise again. Outside the window, the asteroid storms continued to spin far above the planet. They seemed wild, chaotic, and impossible. Elias smiled to himself. Humanity thrived in the impossible. And so, as night fell over Lyrathia, Captain Elias Rourke drifted to sleep, ready for whatever the next day would bring. Adventure awaited, and he would meet it head-on. The audacious human in a world of brilliance and danger. The morning air was crisp on Lyrathia. Captain Elias Rourke woke with a sense of excitement tinged with caution. Yesterday's challenge had proven humans daring, but today felt different. There was an undercurrent of tension in the palace, something he couldn't yet name. Lyra appeared at the door to his room, her silver hair catching the morning light. "Captain, we have a situation," she said, her tone serious. "I need your input." Elias sat up, instantly alert. "What kind of situation?" Lyra led him down the palace corridors, their soft hum echoing in the quiet morning. "It seems a faction of Orinians is plotting against the alliance. They want to sabotage the negotiations with your people." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Sabotage? How?" Lyra frowned. "We are not certain yet, but the signs are their encrypted messages, missing documents, altered schedules. Someone is trying to undermine trust between our species." Elias felt a familiar thrill. Humans thrived on challenges like this. Where others saw complexity and danger, he saw opportunity to use ingenuity, observation, and improvisation. "Show me the evidence," he said. In the council chamber, Lyra displayed a series of holographic projections. Symbols, messages, and patterns appeared in mid-air, complex and elegant. Elias studied them carefully. To an Orinian, these might have seemed clear and precise, but to him, there were gaps, small details overlooked, patterns inconsistent, a trail left carelessly. Humans excelled at spotting hidden mistakes, anomalies, and loopholes. "Look here," Elias said, pointing at a sequence of symbols. "This doesn't match the encoding standard. Whoever did this didn't account for multiple observers. It's sloppy." Lyra's eyes widened slightly. "You are suggesting that a human can spot flaws in Orinian encryption?" "I'm suggesting that humans can notice patterns others miss," Elias replied with a grin. "Sometimes, audacity works better than discipline." Lyra studied him silently for a moment. Then, without another word, she activated a transport. They were moving quickly, too quickly for ordinary diplomacy. Elias followed, feeling a surge of adrenaline. Humans thrived in situations that required rapid thinking. They arrived at a dimly lit chamber deep within the palace. Servants had been reported missing, and suspicious activity was noted near the archives. Elias stepped forward cautiously, scanning the area with trained eyes. "See the marks here?" Lyra asked, pointing to the floor. Someone dragged heavy containers across the tiles. They avoided the security sensors in these areas, but left traces here. Elias crouched, examining the scratches. "This is clever, but not perfect. Whoever did this didn't consider the weight distribution. You can trace their movements." Lyra's respect for the humans' ability grew. Humans were messy, bold, and unconventional, but that was exactly what made them effective in ways Orinians often couldn't anticipate, using a combination of intuition, observation, and improvisation. Elias reconstructed the path the saboteurs had taken. He led Lyra through hidden corridors, unguarded access points, and concealed rooms. Each step revealed more about the rogue faction's plan. "They are after the negotiation documents," Elias said, examining a small room where papers had been left behind. "They want to destroy evidence of the alliance proposal before it reaches the council." Lyra's expression darkened. "If they succeed, our people may mistrust yours. It could set relations back decades." Elias nodded. "Then we stop them." Quickly, they split up, moving through the palace with precision. Elias relied on human improvisation, using shadows, reflections, and unplanned paths to avoid detection. Lyra used her discipline and knowledge of the palace layout. Together, they were a perfect combination: human boldness and alien precision. In the lower archives, they finally confronted the culprits, a group of Orinians armed with tools designed to destroy the documents. The rogues froze as Elias entered. His presence was calm, confident, and commanding. Humans often had an advantage in intimidation not through strength, but through audacity. "Step away from the documents," Elias said firmly. "You are endangering not just yourselves, but the entire alliance." One of the rogues lunged toward the papers. Elias reacted instinctively. Using a small, flexible device from his suit, he created a light field that blocked the movement and forced them back. Lyra moved quickly to restrain the intruders. The confrontation was brief but effective. Elias's improvisation, quick thinking, and human audacity had turned the tide. The documents were safe. Afterwards, Lyra looked at him with a mixture of respect and surprise. Humans are unpredictable," she said. "You do things we would never consider. And yet, you succeed." Elias smiled. "That's what humans do. We take risks, notice details others miss, and improvise when the rules fail. Sometimes, it works better than following the plan perfectly." Lyra nodded slowly. "Perhaps your species has more to offer than I realized." The palace was quiet again, but the atmosphere had shifted. Lyra and Elias had formed a bond through action, not words. Trust was no longer a theory, it had been tested under pressure. Humans were bold, audacious, and sometimes reckless. But their ingenuity saved the day. That evening, Elias returned to his room, thinking about the events. Humans had always thrived on challenges, using courage and creativity to overcome obstacles. On Lyrathia, he realized, this same audacity was needed not just to survive, but to bridge cultures and build alliances. Lyra appeared at his door again. "Captain, you have shown remarkable skill today," she said. "Your people may be unpredictable, but they are valuable." Elias grinned. "I told you. Humans have a way of turning chaos into advantage." She regarded him quietly, her expression thoughtful. "Perhaps the alliance is stronger than I imagined. With humans, and with you, perhaps we can achieve more than even we believed possible." Elias felt a thrill. Humans were adaptable, courageous, and clever. They thrived where others hesitated. And on Lyrathia, Those qualities were beginning to make a real difference. As night fell, Elias walked to the balcony. The valley below glowed under moonlight, rivers glittering like threads of silver. Stars sparkled above, distant and cold, yet full of possibility. Tomorrow, the negotiations would continue. New challenges would arise. But he was ready. Humanity had survived countless trials. And here, on a distant world, their ingenuity and courage had already proven essential. And perhaps, he thought with a small smile, the humans' greatest strength was not just survival but the spark they brought to every challenge, the boldness that allowed them to rise where others fell. Outside, the palace hummed softly, the walls alive with energy. Elias knew the rogue faction had been only the beginning. Lyrathia held more mysteries, dangers, and opportunities than he could yet imagine. But humans thrived on the unknown. They made their own luck. They turned risks into victories, and in the quiet of the night, Captain Elias Rourke felt a quiet certainty. Humanity was not just surviving, they were rising. The evening on Lyrathia was quiet but charged with anticipation. The events of the day had left the palace in a rare state of alert. Captain Elias Rourke walked through the corridors, feeling the hum of the walls beneath his feet. Each vibration reminded him that the palace was alive, connected, and intelligent. Humans might have relied on instincts and improvisation, but the Orinians relied on precision and control. Together, they formed a curious balance. Lyra had requested his presence in the council chamber, a space larger than any human council room he had seen. Transparent walls offered a view of the valley below, glittering rivers, reflecting the pale light of Lyrathia's moons. The chamber itself was filled with Orinians discussing protocols, each voice calm yet precise, yet Elias could feel the tension. They were waiting, and every movement mattered. "Captain," Lyra said quietly, guiding him to a side table where a small meal was arranged. "Tonight, decisions will be made. Your insight is needed." Elias glanced around. Humans often had a different approach to decision-making, fast, daring, and bold. Here, the Orinians measured every word, every gesture. Yet, he realized, both approaches had strengths. And tonight, those strengths would have to combine. The meeting began. The rogue faction's attempt to sabotage the negotiations had exposed deep divides among the Orinians. Some questioned the value of the human alliance. Others feared further surprises. Elias listened carefully, analyzing not just the words, but the pauses, the glances exchanged, and the subtle shifts in tone. "Your species thrives in unpredictability," one Orinian elder said, addressing Elias. "Yet humans are reckless. How can we trust you?" Elias smiled calmly. "Trust is built, not demanded. Yesterday, I navigated the asteroid storms when many thought it impossible. Today, I helped uncover the sabotage. Humans don't just survive, we adapt. We find solutions where others hesitate." Lyra watched him closely. Elias's approach was audacious, but it carried weight. Humans were unpredictable. Yes, but their audacity was paired with ingenuity. They could see paths others overlooked. That, she realized, was what made them invaluable. After hours of deliberation, the council agreed to move forward with the alliance. Cautiously but optimistically. The rogue faction was contained, their influence reduced. Elias felt a surge of satisfaction. Humans had proven themselves, not just in daring acts, but in strategy and problem-solving. Later, he returned to his quarters, only to find Lyra waiting. The room had a new, quiet intimacy now, shaped by shared challenges and mutual respect. "You've changed the perception of humans here," Lyra said softly. "Not all, but enough to show what we can gain from partnership." Elias leaned against the wall, considering her words. "Humans have always believed in rising to the challenge. We take risks because the reward is often worth it. Sometimes, that's all it takes to turn the impossible into reality." Lyra studied him for a moment. "You are bold, Captain. Bold to the point of annoyance at times. I call it confidence, Elias said with a grin. And humans have a way of making the impossible feel possible. There was a pause, filled with unspoken thoughts. Elias noticed the way Lyra's eyes reflected the light from the valley below, thoughtful and guarded. Perhaps, she said finally, you can teach me something about this human way. Elias's grin widened. And perhaps you can teach me something about patience and strategy. They shared a quiet laugh, the tension of the day giving way to a rare moment of connection. Trust had been forged not through words alone, but through action. Humans and Irinians, working side by side, had overcome deception and danger. And in that success, Elias realized, bonds stronger than any treaty could be formed. Night deepened over the palace. The air outside was cool, carrying the scent of alien flora. Elias walked to the balcony, looking out over the valley. The rivers glimmered in moonlight, and distant mountains rose like guardians of the planet. Adventure, he thought, was never far from humanity. Challenges were not just obstacles, they were opportunities to rise. Lyra joined him silently. You see the world differently than we do, she said. Your people take risks we would never consider. And yet, you survive. Elias turned to her. Humans have always survived. We thrive because we adapt, because we act where others hesitate. That audacity, it can be dangerous. Yes, but it can also open doors no one else can reach. Lyra considered this. Perhaps this is why your species can be inspiring. You remind us that control is not everything. Sometimes, courage and improvisation matter just as much. Elias smiled. Exactly. And on this planet, we'll need both your discipline and our boldness. Together, we can achieve more than either species could alone. For a long moment, they watched the valley in silence. The night was calm, yet it held a sense of potential, of danger, of discovery. Elias felt the thrill of the unknown. Humans were made for it. Lyrathia, with its challenges and mysteries, was a world ready for human ingenuity. Finally, Lyra spoke. Captain, tomorrow will bring more decisions, more tests. Are you ready? Elias nodded. I was born ready. But more than that, I'm ready to learn from you, and perhaps teach you a little along the way. Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile. We shall see if your confidence holds. They returned inside, the palace humming softly around them. As Elias prepared for sleep, he reflected on the day. Humans had faced challenges for millennia, using courage, wit, and boldness to survive. On Lyrathia, those same qualities were proving invaluable. He felt a deep sense of purpose. The single bed, once a symbol of boundaries, now seemed to symbolize trust. The night held potential, not just for survival, but for connection. Humans and Irinians, working together, could rise above danger and uncertainty. Elias lay back, feeling a quiet thrill. Humanity had survived countless trials. But here, on this distant world, they were doing more than surviving, they were proving themselves. Audacious, inventive, and daring, humans were rising in ways the galaxy had yet to see. Outside, the stars glittered. Lyrathia's storms had calmed for now, but the planet's challenges were far from over. Tomorrow would bring new tests, new risks, and new opportunities, and Elias, as always, would meet them head-on. He closed his eyes, thinking of the day's successes, the bonds forged, and the challenges ahead. Humanity thrived in uncertainty, in the face of danger, in moments that demanded courage and creativity. And on Lyrathia, those qualities had already begun to shine. As sleep took him, Elias felt certain of one thing. The adventure was far from over. And together, he and Lyra, human and Irinian, would face whatever came next with boldness, ingenuity, and trust. The next morning on Lyrathia began with a soft, golden glow over the valley. Captain Elias Rourke woke early, feeling the hum of the palace beneath him. Yesterday's events had forged trust between humans and Aurinians, but today would test that trust in ways neither species could fully predict. Lyra entered his room promptly, her expression calm yet serious. "Captain, today will be decisive. The Council will vote on finalizing the alliance. But first, a test remains." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Another test? I thought we passed the first two already." Lyra shook her head. "The alliance is fragile. The rogue faction still lurks, waiting for a moment of weakness. You will lead a team to secure the main communication hub before the Council convenes. Only then can we guarantee that our vote is informed and safe." Elias felt a thrill of anticipation. Humans thrived in such situations where strategy, courage, and improvisation were required in equal measure. "Consider it done," he said. The team assembled quickly. It consisted of Aurinian engineers, human operatives, and a few specialists from other allied worlds. Elias immediately took charge, not by command alone, but by demonstrating confidence and initiative. Humans had a way of inspiring others, often without realizing it. "Listen carefully," Elias said, pointing to a holographic map of the palace and its surrounding grounds. "The hub is heavily secured, but there are blind spots in the sensor network. If we move quickly and precisely, we can get in, secure the systems, and prevent any sabotage." Lyra watched closely, noting how he communicated strategy. Humans often had a way of simplifying complex tasks, turning them into actionable steps. Aurinians were brilliant, precise, but sometimes overcomplicated. Elias's audacity combined with clarity gave the team confidence. The team moved through hidden corridors, avoiding patrolling security units. Elias led the way, relying on a combination of intuition, improvisation, and observation. Every turn, every shadow, was calculated but not in the rigid way Aurinians preferred. It was flexible, adaptive, human. They reached the communication hub, a sleek chamber humming with energy. The controls were alien in design, but Elias's sharp mind quickly adapted. Humans were problem solvers, after all, capable of learning new systems under pressure. "Cover me," he instructed. "I'll access the main console." As he worked, subtle alarms began to flash. The rogue faction had anticipated an attempt. But Elias didn't panic. He relied on human creativity. Using an improvised combination of hacking tools and timing, he disabled the security measures without triggering a full alert. Lyra watched, impressed. Humans were audacious. Yes. But they could also be precise under pressure. Elias's combination of boldness and adaptability was exactly what made humans unique. Finally, the hub systems were secure. Communications between the palace and the planetary outposts were now protected. The rogue faction's influence had been neutralized. Elias exhaled, smiling. "All done. The alliance is safe." Lyra approached him. "You have done more than I expected. Not only did you secure the hub, but you demonstrated something important to your own people and to mine. Humans rise to challenges that would stop others in their tracks." Elias shrugged modestly. "We try our best. Sometimes it works, sometimes it fails, but we keep going. That's what makes humans human." The council convened soon after. Representatives from various Aurinian regions gathered alongside human delegates. The chamber buzzed with anticipation. The rogue faction's failure and the successful securing of the hub strengthened trust between the species. Elias stood beside Lyra, quietly observing. The vote began, and one by one, the representatives expressed their opinions. Caution, curiosity, and admiration for human ingenuity filled the room. When the final tally was announced, the alliance was approved unanimously. Lyra turned to Elias. "It is done. The alliance is official. Your actions were crucial. Without your intervention, the vote could have been compromised." Elias smiled. "Humans don't just survive. They help others rise with them." It seems Lyrathia has found that out firsthand. That evening, the palace held a celebration. Music and light filled the halls, and the air was alive with joy and relief. Humans and Orinians mingled, exchanging stories, laughter, and ideas. Elias found himself at the balcony again, gazing out over the valley. The rivers glimmered in moonlight, and the mountains seemed to watch silently, guardians of the planet. Lyra joined him, holding 2 small cups filled with a glowing liquid. "To the Alliance," she said. "To audacity," Elias replied, clinking his cup against hers. They drank in silence, the stars above shining bright. The quiet was comforting, yet full of potential. Humanity had proven its worth, not just through diplomacy, but through ingenuity, courage, and daring action. "You've changed the perception of humans," Lyra said softly. "Not all, but enough to show what we can gain from partnership." Elias leaned back, looking at the valley below. "Humans have always believed in rising to the challenge. We take risks because the reward is worth it. And sometimes, we make the impossible possible." Lyra's gaze softened. "I think I understand now. Your people are not just bold, they are essential. Where others hesitate, you act. Where others fail, you adapt. That is why the Alliance will succeed." Elias smiled. "And that, Lyra, is what makes humanity human." They stood together, looking at the night sky. The planet's moons reflected on the rivers below, creating a world of light and possibility. Elias felt a deep sense of accomplishment. Humanity had arrived, not as visitors, but as partners. They had shown that courage, ingenuity, and audacity could bridge worlds and cultures. In the quiet of the balcony, Lyra spoke again. "Captain, tomorrow will bring new challenges. The rogue faction may attempt something else, and negotiations with other worlds will continue. But I believe, with humans, we are stronger." Elias nodded. "We will face whatever comes. Together. Humans rise in adversity, and so will our alliance." The night deepened, carrying with it the promise of adventure. Elias reflected on the journey from the moment he first arrived to navigating asteroid storms, uncovering conspiracies, and securing the alliance. Humans had proven that their daring, creativity, and courage could change the course of events, even on distant worlds. Lyra looked at him once more, her expression thoughtful. "You have taught me something, Captain. Sometimes audacity, combined with respect and intelligence, can achieve what discipline alone cannot." Elias grinned. "And you've taught me that strategy, patience, and precision are just as important. Together, we make a good team." They shared a quiet laugh. The bond between human and Orinian strengthened by trust, respect, and shared triumph. As the celebration continued inside, Elias stayed on the balcony for a while longer, gazing at the stars. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown worlds and challenges. Humanity had survived countless trials on Earth, and now, on Lyrathia, they had shown that survival was just the beginning. Boldness, ingenuity, and courage, the traits that defined humans, could create alliances, save lives, and shape the future. And in that moment, Elias realized something profound. Humanity was not just capable of rising, they were essential to the galaxy's growth. Their presence, daring, and creativity brought hope and possibilities where none had existed. The stars above shimmered like promises. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers, and new opportunities. But Elias was ready. Humanity had risen on Lyrathia, proving that their audacity, intelligence, and courage could change worlds. As he finally returned to his room, the single bed awaited him. A symbol not just of rest, but of trust, partnership, and potential. Lyra had respected him, relied on him, and now, humanity's place on Lyrathia was secure. Lying down, Elias allowed himself a quiet smile. Adventure awaited beyond these walls, in the stars and the worlds yet to be discovered. Humans would rise to meet it, as they always had, daring, inventive, and unyielding. And with that thought, he drifted into sleep, ready for whatever the galaxy might bring next.